You notice it in small moments. Someone interrupts you, and you stop talking. A decision is being made, and you let it happen. An opinion forms in your chest, and you swallow it. Not because you don't have one, not because you don't care, but because stepping forward feels wrong, too aggressive, too much, too risky. You've learned to read the room before you enter it. You sense tension before it's spoken. You adapt before conflict has a chance to exist. And people praise you for it. You're easygoing. You're mature. You're not like the others. But quietly, privately, something keeps happening. Your needs get postponed. Your voice gets diluted. Your presence gets negotiated down to something acceptable. This is the paradox of being non-dominant. The very trait that kept you safe, likable, and included is now the trait that keeps you unseen, unheard, and underchosen. Non-dominance protected you once. It helped you survive systems where power was loud and unpredictable. It taught you how to stay connected without provoking threat. But adulthood is not a survival arena. It is a power arena. And in a world that rewards assertion, speed, and certainty, non-dominance doesn't read as wisdom. It reads as absence. So you wait. You defer. You hope being good will eventually be noticed. And slowly, life begins to happen around you instead of through you. To be non-dominant is not to be passive by nature. It is to have learned, often early, that power was dangerous. Let's be precise. Non-dominance is a relational strategy, not a personality flaw. At its core is appeasement, a lesser-discussed survival response alongside fight, flight, and freeze. Appeasement says, if I reduce my impact, I reduce the threat. The nervous system learns this lesson deeply. Now add attachment conditioning. In environments where love, approval, or safety were inconsistent, or controlled by dominant figures, children learn that asserting needs risks rupture, so they adapt by becoming agreeable, perceptive, and self-effacing. Then comes learned inhibition. Not learned helplessness, but learned restraint. The brain's action systems, especially the prefrontal cortex and motor planning regions, become overregulated. Before acting, the mind simulates consequences, over and over, until action dissolves into thought. Metaphorically, imagine a car with an engine powerful enough to move mountains, but brakes so sensitive they activate at the slightest pressure. That's the non-dominant psyche. Highly aware, highly controlled, and chronically stalled. This isn't humility. It's power suppression internalized as morality. The cost of being non-dominant is not failure. It's erosion. Erosion of confidence. Erosion of desire. Erosion of the belief that your presence matters. You begin to live as a background character in your own life. You sacrifice directness for peace. You sacrifice clarity for harmony. You sacrifice self for system. And the grief is subtle, but relentless. It's the grief of watching less capable people lead. The grief of seeing your ideas spoken louder by others. The grief of knowing you could have, but didn't. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of this when he wrote about resentment, the slow internal turning of suppressed power into self-blame and quiet bitterness. Not explosive anger, just a dull ache. You tell yourself you're above dominance, that you're more evolved, that you don't need to assert. But underneath that story is a fear rarely named. The fear that if you step forward, you will be rejected, punished, or abandoned. So simple moments become heavy. Asking becomes negotiating. Desire becomes justification. Presence becomes permission seeking. You don't feel oppressed, you feel optional. In adulthood, non-dominance doesn't disappear, it professionalizes. You might recognize it here. First, you wait to be chosen instead of choosing. In careers, relationships, opportunities, you let momentum decide for you. Second, you over-explain your needs, as if clarity requires justification. Third, you tolerate subtle disrespect, because confrontation feels worse than erosion. Fourth, you become indispensable but replaceable, valued for reliability, not leadership. Fifth, you struggle to occupy space, physically, verbally, emotionally. Sixth, internally, you confuse restraint with virtue. You call it patience. Others call it invisibility. These are not who you are. They are strategies you learn to stay safe in systems that punished assertion. The work is not to become dominant. It is to reclaim agency. The first step is witnessing. Stop romanticizing your disappearance. Stop calling self-silencing maturity. Stop gaslighting yourself into thinking power is immoral. See the pattern, not with shame, with clarity. Healing does not mean becoming aggressive. It means becoming self-authoring. You learn to tolerate the discomfort of being felt. You practice stating needs without cushioning them. You allow others to react and survive it. Through inner child reparenting, you teach the nervous system that assertion no longer equals danger. Through shadow work, you reclaim the parts of you that were labeled too much and buried for safety. Through choosing firmness, you learn that boundaries do not destroy connection. They filter it. Power does not corrupt you. It reveals you. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your darkness is not cruelty. It is strength denied expression. The goal is not to dominate others. The goal is to stop disappearing for their comfort. You were never meant to be small. You were meant to be whole. If this spoke to you, it's because you recognize the cost you've been paying quietly. Share this with someone who confuses goodness with self-erasure. And subscribe, not to become dominant, but to finally stand where you already belong.